Family favoritism. When love becomes chains. Family is supposed to be a place of love, where every child is valued and recognized. But for me, it was the first place that made me invisible. I can't recall the exact moment I started noticing the difference between me and Olivia, my younger sister. Maybe it was when I was 6, after I won first place in the school-wide spelling bee. I remember running home excitedly, my certificate still smelling of fresh ink, my little heart swelling with pride. My mother glanced at it, gave me a slight nod, and patted my head. "Well done, Mandy. Keep up the good work." Then she turned away and continued decorating a ballet-themed cake for Olivia, because that same day, Olivia had won 3rd place in a dance competition. And that was far more important than my victory. At the time, I didn't understand. I thought maybe I just needed to try harder. Maybe if I won 1st place in a bigger competition, my mom would throw me a party like she did for Olivia. But, as I kept winning more competitions, as my grades remained at the top, the recognition never went beyond a nod or a passing word of encouragement. Meanwhile, Olivia? She only needed to pass a test without failing to earn a family dinner out. As we grew older, the difference became even more apparent. Olivia, with her golden hair and perfect smile, was always the center of attention, the pride of our parents. When she wanted to dance, they sent her to the most prestigious ballet school. When she got into college, they bought her a brand new car, wrapped in a bright red bow. And me? I wasn't a failure. I had dreams, ambitions, but instead of being supported, I had to achieve them on my own. I worked 2 jobs to pay for college. I saved every penny to afford a tiny apartment. I don't resent them for not helping me, I'm just heartbroken that it never even crossed their minds. To them, Olivia always needed them, and I never did. And so, I became the extra one. Some days, I tell myself I don't need their recognition, that I'm stronger than that. But then, sitting alone in my small room, looking at family photos filled with Olivia's smile, I realize the most painful truth. It's not that I don't need them. It's that they never needed me. And when I sat in the lawyer's office hearing that my parents had left everything to Olivia, I wasn't even surprised. Because in the end, I never really had anything to lose. Abandoned by my family, but I never truly fell. My mother once told me that in a family, parents can't love their children with perfect equality, but they always try to make sure no one feels left out. But now, sitting in my small apartment, I have only one question. Did they ever really try? From a young age, I learned one thing. No one would give me anything unless I fought for it myself. While Olivia was cherished like a princess, I had to build my life from scratch. When she wanted to dance, my parents immediately enrolled her in an elite academy and hired private tutors. And me? When I expressed interest in joining an advanced math class, my mother just chuckled. "Mandy, you don't need that. You're already smart. Let us focus on Olivia." I told myself it didn't matter. I didn't need those privileges. I could take care of myself. But the truth is, it was never just about money. It was about my worth in their eyes. I started working in high school, saving every penny to afford college. Meanwhile, Olivia received a brand new BMW for her 16th birthday. A gift from our parents, of course. And me? I got an old bicycle, along with a pitying remark. "Mandy, you don't go out much anyway. A bike should be enough." Still, I tried not to let it get to me. I believed that if I worked hard enough, one day, they would finally see me. I didn't need gifts. I just wanted to be acknowledged. And I did it. I graduated college with nearly perfect grades and landed a high-paying job in finance. I bought my first apartment on my own, while Olivia lived in a luxury home our parents gifted her as a wedding present. I didn't resent it. I just thought that, in the end, my parents would be proud of me. But even as I built my career, Olivia remained the only one who mattered. When she decided to become a stay-at-home mom, my parents immediately bought her a second house for extra space. Meanwhile, I had never once been offered a helping hand. I didn't need their money, but I wanted to know that they cared, that they saw me as part of the family. And then, the day came when I lost my last shred of hope. The will reading took place in a sleek lawyer's office. Olivia sat there in a custom-tailored black dress, her golden hair flawless, like a Hollywood star stepping out of a magazine. I sat there with my hands clenched in my lap, waiting for something. Something I already knew would never come. Your parents have left their entire estate to Olivia." The words hung in the air, like a cold knife piercing my heart. "Everything?" I asked, my voice steady. I was prepared for this. I had known it was coming. But still, when the words finally left the lawyer's lips, I felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath me. He adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat before continuing. "Your parents believed that you were independent and didn't need financial assistance. Olivia, as a stay-at-home mother, requires more support." Olivia, who owned 3 houses, a luxury sports car, and a husband making 6 figures, was the one who needed support. And me? I was the one who wasn't worth a thing. Olivia sighed and placed a gentle hand on mine, as if she were offering me comfort. "You've always been so strong, Mandy. Mom and Dad just wanted to help me. Please don't be upset." Don't be upset? Upset? I wasn't upset. I wasn't heartbroken. I didn't feel anything anymore. Because in that moment, I realized a truth more painful than anything else. I never had anything to lose in the first place. I smiled, a smile that made Olivia hesitate. "Thank you for your honesty, Olivia," I said, standing up with complete composure. Then I turned to the lawyer. "I won't contest the will." I heard Olivia inhale sharply. She expected me to cry, to be angry, to beg for a piece of our parents' wealth. But she didn't understand that when someone has been abandoned their entire life, they no longer need to cling to anything. I didn't need their money. But I wasn't going to let Olivia walk away so easily. She thought she had won. But I had a plan of my own. A final gift for our parents. A gift Olivia would never forget. "Do you think Mandy should walk away and leave it all behind? Or should she fight for what's rightfully hers? Does Olivia truly deserve everything?" Share your thoughts below. Buried secrets. When I uncovered the shocking truth. I'm not the kind of person who likes to fight for what isn't mine. But when someone takes away what rightfully belongs to me, I will never sit back and endure it. Olivia thought she had won, that I would quietly accept my fate as I always had. But this time, I wasn't going to walk away. I needed answers. 3 days after the will reading, I returned to my parents' old house, now Olivia's house. The mansion looked just as it always had, with a perfectly manicured lawn and climbing roses wrapping around the white fence. But today I wasn't here to reminisce about old memories. I was here to find the truth. When Olivia opened the door, her expression flickered with surprise. "Mandy? What are you doing here?" I kept my face neutral. "I need to collect some of Mom's personal belongings, some old letters, a few keepsakes." She hesitated for a second but then offered a fake smile. "Of course, help yourself." I stepped inside, feeling as if I had walked into a world I didn't belong to. Everything, from the luxurious leather couches to the massive portrait of Olivia and her husband above the fireplace, exuded power and entitlement. I headed straight to my father's study, knowing it was where he kept all the important documents. I opened drawer after drawer, flipping through old files. Contracts, receipts, letters, and then I found it. An old file, the pages slightly yellowed. The original will. My heart pounded as I skimmed through the neatly typed lines until I reached the most important part. "The entirety of our estate shall be equally divided between our 2 daughters, Mandy Holloway and Olivia Holloway." I froze. The will that the lawyer had read did not include this clause. In that version, everything belonged to Olivia. Someone had changed it. Someone had lied to me. Looking for something? I spun around. Olivia stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. I held up the paper. "Funny, Olivia. The original will says our parents intended for us to share everything, but in the final version, it's all yours." She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. Instead, she shrugged, as if this was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "Mom and Dad always wanted me to have everything, Mandy. I just made sure their wishes were carried out." Her voice was smooth, devoid of guilt. I felt my body tremble. Not with rage, but with something far more exhilarating. Because finally, I had proof. Olivia expected me to scream, to cry, to demand justice right then and there. But instead, I simply smiled. "Thank you for your honesty, Olivia." I folded the will and slipped it into my bag. That's all I needed to know. Then I turned and walked away. Olivia had no idea that I was ready to destroy her perfect little world. Revenge plan. When justice doesn't come from the courts. I didn't leave Olivia's house with bitterness or anger. There was no need. Because for the first time in my life, I was the one in control. There were many ways to take back what was rightfully mine. I could go straight to a lawyer and sue Olivia for forging legal documents. But lawsuits in America? Slow, exhausting, expensive. And I knew Olivia well enough to guess that she had covered her tracks. She wasn't the type to leave loose ends. No, I needed a different approach. One that would make her destroy herself. And I knew exactly who could help me do it. An unexpected alliance. He sat in the corner of the bar, a half-empty whiskey glass in front of him, his eyes filled with exhaustion and frustration. Connor, Olivia's husband. I walked up to his table and sat down across from him. He looked up, momentarily surprised. "Mandy, what are you doing here?" I tilted my head slightly, offering a small smile. "Connor, I know about the will. I know Olivia changed it." He was silent. 1 second. 2. Then he exhaled deeply, lowering his head onto the table. "I always suspected," he muttered, "but I had no proof. Olivia controls everything, our finances, the houses, the investments. She doesn't let me touch anything." This was exactly what I needed. "Connor," I said, my voice calm but firm, "do you want to watch Olivia lose everything?" He stared at me, and in his eyes I saw disappointment, resentment, and most importantly, willingness. "What are you planning?" I pulled out my phone, opened my photo album, and scrolled to a particular folder. A series of messages, comments, and screenshots from an Instagram account belonging to a man named David Carlisle. A man Olivia had been secretly seeing for the past 4 years. Connor's face drained of color as he looked at the screen. His grip on the whiskey glass tightened, knuckles turning white. "She betrayed you," I said slowly. "Not just me, you too." For a long, stretched-out moment he said nothing. Then he leaned back, took a slow sip of his drink, and smiled. "I'll help you. Let me end this game." Exposing Olivia, when secrets can no longer be hidden. Connor was never a strong or decisive man, but today, for the first time, I saw a fire of defiance in his eyes. For too long he had let Olivia control his life. He had endured her manipulation over money, assets, and even the perfect family image she carefully crafted to conceal her true nature. But this time, Olivia wouldn't escape. Step 1, the opening strike. The next morning I sent Connor a file, evidence of Olivia's affair with David Carlisle. Messages, photos, affectionate comments Olivia carelessly left on social media. Connor said nothing. But I knew he was ready. He immediately hired a top divorce attorney. In the US, when a divorce happens, proof of infidelity can shift the entire balance of assets and child custody. And Olivia? She had no way out. 2 days later, I watched from a distance as a legal courier arrived at Olivia's doorstep, handing her divorce papers along with the evidence of her affair. She opened the envelope, skimmed the first few lines, and then went pale. Even from afar, I could see her hands tremble as she gripped the papers, her eyes darting around. Desperate to make sure no one in the neighborhood was watching, Olivia, who lived to flaunt her perfect life to the world, now stood frozen on her doorstep, just like I had once stood in shock when the lawyer declared she had taken everything from me. But I wasn't done yet. Step 2. Destroying Olivia's reputation. Just an hour after Olivia received the divorce papers, I sent an anonymous email to all of her friends, including the mothers in the school PTA, the members of her charity board, and even the management of her elite gated community. Subject: the truth about Olivia Holloway. Attached: screenshots of her affair. Within hours, Olivia's phone was flooded with calls and messages from her wealthy friends, the same people who couldn't stand scandal. I knew she was panicking. I knew she was losing control. And I knew this was only the beginning of her downfall. Destroying Olivia. When her perfect world collapses. Olivia thought she was untouchable. She believed that with her polished image, perfect smile, and high-status connections, no one could bring her down. But she forgot one thing. Her entire world was built on lies. And when the truth was exposed, no one wanted to stand by a fraud. First strike: the social media storm. When I sent the email to the school's parent association, I already knew what the reaction would be. In America, especially in wealthy communities, reputation is everything. The mothers in Olivia's circle weren't just her friends. They were business partners, social connections, and the gatekeepers of the perfect family image. And when one of them was caught in a scandal, the entire community turned its back. Within one afternoon, I saw a wave of Facebook posts. I'm so disappointed in someone I once considered a friend. Turns out, not everyone lives up to the image they project. How can we trust someone who deceives even their own family? None of these posts mentioned Olivia by name, but everyone knew who they were talking about. And Olivia? She panicked. She started calling people, trying to explain, trying to do damage control. But what Olivia didn't realize was that once trust is broken, it can't be easily repaired. Some friends politely listened, some ignored her calls, and some cut her off completely. Second strike. No place in high society. A week later, I received a message from an old friend of my mother's, someone who had been in the elite charity committee with Olivia. You won't believe it. The board just had a private meeting. Olivia has been asked to step down. No one wants to be associated with her scandal. I smiled. I had expected this. In a society where image matters more than truth, no one wanted to be tied to someone whose reputation was crumbling. And Olivia? She had just lost her biggest source of social status. Final strike. Losing her family, her home, and everything else. But the most satisfying part wasn't watching her lose friends. It was knowing that Connor was filing for full custody of their children. He had gathered enough evidence from her affair to statements from his lawyer. And in conservative areas like ours, a cheating mother wasn't seen as a fit parent. The day Olivia received the court notice stripping her of custody, I knew she had truly fallen. Because now, she had no one left. No family. No husband. No children. No reputation. No money. Everything she took from me, I had taken back. But I wasn't finished yet. I wanted her to feel what it was like to have everything ripped away. And that's when I made my final move, taking back the house. The finishing blow. Reclaiming what was mine. With proof that Olivia had tampered with the will, I hired a lawyer to sue her for fraud. This wasn't just a matter of ethics, it was a crime. And with the best legal team I could afford, I knew Olivia stood no chance. Just 3 weeks later, I stood outside my parents' old house, watching as a police officer handed Olivia an eviction notice. She screamed. She tried to fight it. She begged. But I just stood there, calm, just as she had been when she stole everything from me. You can't do this to me, Olivia cried, her eyes red and desperate. I simply smiled. Olivia, I said, my voice steady, I'm just taking back what was always mine. And with a final nod, I watched as she was escorted off the property. This time there was no one left to save her. Is this really the end? I had my justice. I had made Olivia lose everything. But as I stepped inside the house that was once her sanctuary, I realized something. I didn't want to live in the shadows of the past. I had won. But true victory wasn't holding on to what Olivia once had. It was being free from it. So the next morning, I called a real estate agency. This house would be sold. I didn't need it. I had already gotten everything I wanted, a fresh start. Liberation. When true victory isn't revenge. Sitting on the front porch of my parents' old house, I took a sip of hot coffee, letting the slight bitterness dissolve on my tongue. A strange feeling settled in my chest. Not regret, not resentment, but relief. I had reclaimed everything that was rightfully mine. Justice had been served. Olivia had lost it all. Her family, her reputation, her wealth, everything she had stolen from me. But now, as I sat in the quiet of this yard, I realized I didn't need to hold on to any of it anymore. The next morning, I signed the contract to sell the house. The real estate agent looked at me with surprise. Are you sure? This could be a family legacy. I simply smiled. No, it's just a reminder. And I didn't need that reminder anymore. The final step, a new chapter. After finalizing the sale, I drove away from the neighborhood I once called home. The familiar streets passed by my window, but this time, there was no weight pressing down on my shoulders. I had won. But not because I had destroyed Olivia. I had won because I refused to let the past define me any longer. I was starting over, in a new city, a new life, where I was no longer Mandy, the forgotten daughter. Now I was simply Mandy, strong, independent, and free. I turned up the radio, letting an old song fill the car. I smiled, pressing my foot on the gas, leaving the past behind, and driving toward my future. And this time, I was the one writing my own story. A new beginning. Writing my own story. The road stretched endlessly before me, bathed in hues of orange and red from the setting sun. In the rearview mirror, the small town I once called home faded into the distance. But this time, I didn't feel sorrow. I wasn't running away, I was moving forward. I had no idea what awaited me in my new city, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid. As a child, I had always dreamed of escaping Olivia's shadow, of living a life where I didn't have to prove my worth to anyone. Now, that dream was becoming reality. Building an empire of my own, I chose Seattle as my next destination. A vibrant city, yet not overly glamorous. A place where people chase dreams without relying on family names or privileged backgrounds. A place where no one knew who I was. I rented a small apartment near downtown, just enough to start fresh. I didn't need luxury, I needed freedom. Within the first week, I applied for a position at a top financial firm. I had once thought that leaving my past behind meant abandoning the things I was best at, but I was wrong. I loved this job. I was good at analyzing numbers, strategizing investments, and spotting opportunities that others missed. And this time, I wasn't working to prove myself to anyone. I was working to build an empire of my own. Olivia. No longer important. Occasionally, I would still hear news about Olivia through old acquaintances. She had left town, moved into a modest apartment, far from the lavish lifestyle she once flaunted. Connor had won full custody of their children, and she no longer had a say in their lives. I had once thought I would feel satisfaction upon hearing this, but instead I felt nothing. It turned out I never needed to destroy Olivia to find happiness. Happiness had come from my decision to leave. To move forward. To become the person I was always meant to be. The unexpected dinner, a familiar face. One Friday evening after a long week at work, I decided to treat myself to a nice dinner. I found a cozy little restaurant tucked away in a quiet corner of the city, filled with the warm glow of candlelight and the rich aroma of red wine and Italian spices.